Good evening, y'all. How you doing? Hope everything's been good for you this week. Been a hot minute since I've posted anything, so figured I'd go ahead and continue with my story. So, after Daddy died, even though I held it all inside, I was very angry, very bitter, disappointed, and I didn't know how to process all of those feelings along with my grief, and I was lost. You know, I was a student, and I was a great student. I was helping take care of Daddy, and I was great at that too. And when he died, I lost my sense of purpose, my sense of I had become so wrapped up in being his caregiver that once that was gone, I was very lost. I didn't know who I was really, or what I was going to do with my life. Even though I was in school, working to get my degree so I could, maybe do part-time at a doctor's office. I was set adrift in the sea with no compass and no direction, and I was drowning. Um, because Daddy's cat was a loner. Um, I would spend a couple days down here with Daddy's kitty, and then I'd go back up to the other house and spend time with my cats and my husband. And before I would make the transition from one place to the next, I would, make sure everything was perfectly clean and everything in its place. And then, I'd come down here, and when I go back up to the other house, it would be a mess again. Tim would, clean up after himself somewhat, but it was always a half-assed job. And it was really frustrating me. So I started, instead of spending 2 or 3 days at a time at each place, I started spending a week here and then a week up there, and kept that going for just a little while, because I got tired of cleaning up messes that weren't mine. And it's not like I didn't talk to him about it, because I did. It's just he didn't care enough to try and help, really, is the way I felt. In, I'm gonna say, February of 2016, I finally just packed. He was at work at the pharmacy from, I think it was like 8 o'clock until 5. And, I would go up to the house, and first thing I did was pack up all, put all my clothes in the truck, and I just brought them all down here and put them away. And every time I went up to the house up there, I grabbed another truck full of stuff and, brought it down and unpacked it and put it where it was going to be. And I lied to him and I said it was because Socks really needed me, which Socks was Daddy's kitten, more than ours did, because he was up there with ours, and that I was making them, just gonna continue to stay down here so she didn't, feel lonely, and that she could have somebody there with her to take Dad's place. And it was kind of true, but mainly every time I saw my husband and every time I talked to him, I was reminded of how much he criticized everything I did, how much he berated me for not doing things the way he thought they should have been done. And, I was so very angry at him for not being the support system that I needed during the time of Dad's fall and recovery. He was supposed to be there to help hold me up, and instead he dragged me down even more, and I was angry, and I didn't want to be around him. So I made up the excuse that I was doing this for Socks, and I just moved and started living life alone. He and I would see each other, every few days, but, I really didn't go out of my way to be around him. I still made dinners and had him come down so we could have dinner and and watch a movie. I still did those kind of things, but it was grasping at straws to stay afloat at the time. After we divorced, I asked him, I said, if you miss me so much now, why didn't you fight for me? Why didn't you fight for us to stay together? And he said that, in his eyes, I hated him, and there was no getting around that. And I told him, I said, I never hated Tim. I was angry and disappointed at his actions, but I hated me, not him. I didn't know how to face myself and face my actions. So I projected them onto him, and he took it as me, you know, hating him, which I never did. I wanted us to work out, but every time I tried to work on us, it always turned into, not so much a shouting match, but it just almost the blame game and, well, you don't understand and, you can't understand kind of thing. He didn't understand my feelings and why I felt that way. And he didn't take any steps to try to understand where I was coming from. And that it's when you're living half a life, it's not a good life. But, I just kind of I withdrew from everything and everyone at that time. Um Anytime I went out in public, I I had panic attacks. During that semester, I had one class that was on campus, and there would be times I would have to leave class because I would just fall into a panic attack being around, the 20 or so people in the classroom, and I would start having flashbacks of everything that had happened, and I would just freak out. And it was not easy to be out of the house. So if I didn't have to go anywhere, I stayed home. My doctor, I knew I was floundering, so I asked the doctor for help. He put me on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medicine, and set me up for counseling. So it was, I I knew I needed the help, but I really wasn't putting in the work to overcome and come and work through everything. Using I used counseling to put a band-aid on everything so I could say to everybody I was fine and present that image to everybody when I was anything but fine. Yeah, at the time, I should have had "I'm fine" tattooed on my forehead because that's the only thing I'd say. And everything else I just pushed deep down inside. And, whenever something would come up that hurt me or triggered me, I'd just push it down even further so I could ignore everything. I thought every all my friends and family were telling me that nothing that happened was my fault, and that they were there for me. All I needed to do was reach out, but yeah, I knew that they wouldn't understand why I was blaming myself. One of the biggest reasons I blamed myself for Dad's death was because in that time I was stretched so thin, and being in that online relationship was selfish of me in my mind, which, you know, that's a whole nother thing. But between staying in school, because Daddy would have beat my ass if I had not continued on, but I could have taken fewer classes, but I didn't. I kept that full course load. But I also continued on with my online relationship, and my justification was that, I was so miserable and unhappy in real life that I needed an escape. And I felt that because I took that time for myself, that was being selfish, and that in turn was in my mind what killed Dad, because I was not as observant as I thought I should be. And nobody knew about any of that. It wasn't until just before the 1-year anniversary of Dad's death that I even told my boys about my online relationship, and that I blamed myself because of that. And, they didn't judge me. I mean, it took a long time for me to even admit it to my counselor that I was, online and had begun a relationship that way. And, counseling, I kept saying, oh, how great it was going and how much it was helping. But in all honesty, it was just one great big Band-Aid, because I didn't deal with any issues of substance. I talked about how I was upset and how mad I was about the people that, quote unquote, let us down, that weren't there for us, that hurt Dad. I talked about all of that, but I didn't get really in depth in a lot of things in that when I first started counseling. And even when I stopped going to counseling because I said I was better, which I really wasn't, I don't think, even though I asked for counseling, I don't think I was ready to put in the work that was going to be needed to work through all of the feelings I was having. It was easier to pay lip service to the I'm fine, even though I really wasn't. And I did that for a long time. Um, you know, living down here alone gave me time to reflect a lot more on things. I had never really been alone. I was always with a partner. And if I didn't have a man in my life, then of course my kids were always there. So, being alone during all that time was never an option. So, and it was a good thing because I never liked myself. Um, and I used taking care of my family and kids as my escape from dealing with my self-esteem issues and how much I did not like myself. So, being alone for the first time in my entire life, basically, it gave me a lot of time to start to figure out who I was really, not the persona I would put on as a good wife or a good mother or a good daughter, but, really find the true me in that mess. And I'm still working on it. I'm definitely doing a whole lot better now. But I've always conformed to what other people thought I should be. That image of, being the good wife, the good mother, doing everything because others thought that's what I should be. I think it was around Easter time of 2016 that I actually colored my hair. I got cat hair. That I actually colored my hair a unusual color. I think I did it a light purple at the time. And that was the first time I ever did anything like this. I've always colored my hair. I've always disliked my brown, so I usually would go blonde or, sometimes strawberry blonde, but I never did any crazy colors until then. And, that was just the beginning of me finally doing things for me because it brought me joy. I started coloring my hair, any and every color I could think of. When one grew out, it was time for another one. And it was, I enjoy coloring my hair. I do it myself. And I enjoy it because it helps me like myself more. Yeah, maybe the colors are crazy, and I mean, I've had where I've done 2 colors and even 3 colors at the same time. But I don't do it for any other reason except the fact that I like the way it looks, and I wanted to just break out and be me. And taking the steps to do my hair colors helped me realize, it's just hair. It doesn't matter what color it is. It's gonna grow back. You're gonna cut your hair and it'll all be gone. All the color will be gone at some point, and your hair will grow back. So it's a very superficial kind of thing. But it still made me feel more confident in myself to know I could walk around with bright ass pink or, teal or purple, all those different colors, and hold my head up high and say, yeah, this is me and I like it. um, so, I mean, I always had this, I'm not going to say outline, but there are stages of grief, and I thought I had to go through them in a certain time frame and in a certain order. So I, tried doing that and, saying, okay, well, I'm at the acceptance level and, I'm all better now. When I really had no clue what better would be, because I would never really take the time to look in depth at my feelings and take the time to find out who I was as a person when I wasn't holding the title of wife and mother and daughter and caregiver. It's very hard to admit that, you don't know. I didn't know who the hell I was if I wasn't those personas. I didn't have a clue. And I'm still figuring it out, but I'm getting better at figuring it out. I have lived alone now for 6 years. I've been divorced for 3. Making that decision to get divorced for the 3rd time really was one of my hardest decisions, because he and I had been together for 19 years almost at that point, and I still loved him. but I couldn't be with him. And, taking that step to admit it out loud and to take the steps to be 100% alone and on my own, it was difficult. But I knew I had to do it because, we only have one life, and, if you're not fully happy, then things need to change. And I was miserable. He was perfectly fine with the way things were, and that really doesn't match up very well. So, it was a hard decision, and it's one I put off for a long time in hopes that things would get better between us, but they didn't. And that's when I made my choice to become a 3-time loser. um, but it's been good to stand on my own and not be supported by someone that I couldn't count on. My kids are my support system now and forever. I talk with them about everything, and I always will. When I'm trying to make a decision, they're the ones I talk to. And, they give me all the love and support I need, and they also give me different views that maybe I hadn't thought of. So, they're what I need, and they're all I need. My kids, my grandkids, they are my world. So, I actually am going to be going out for my grandson's 2nd birthday in a few weeks, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm going to be leaving my tarantulas, which is fine because I'll make sure they're fed and watered and everything. But I'm also going to be leaving my kitties, and I don't like leaving my babies. My girl Levy, I'm going to miss her a lot, but I have to arrange for somebody to come and take care of them while I'm gone, which the goddess has thoroughly blessed me with wonderful people in my life that have offered to help. So, for the first time in 4 years, I guess, 3 or 4 years, I'm going to be away from home, and it's going to be for about a week and a half, and that's going to be good. All right, well, this has been a rambling one, but if you've made it this far, I thank you for listening. I appreciate you taking your time to watch this, and you have all the love and support I can ever give. I shall say good night, and I will talk to y'all in the next video. Love y'all. Bye.